Shalom, shalom, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to another Savory Sunday where we do what? Break down the Most High's commandment and give our brothers and sisters of the nation of Israel a better understanding than they had yesterday. And I'm your brother Ananias for A.O.I, the Awakening of Israel. And before we get started, we got to give all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua. Yahweh being the Heavenly Father, and Yahushua being His Son, who the world calls Christ, and through His strength, sacrifice and example, we are all able to be here today, to be able to be uplifted and edified at the same time. So like I said before, on Savory Sundays, we try our best to edify our brothers and sisters as to what the commandments are, how to keep them, and the consequences of not keeping them. So today's topic is going to be dealing with the uncleanliness of a woman. It's that time of month again. So what has to happen? Being in this truth, you'll find that it's a different understanding than what's put out there in this world. You got to understand what's going on. So beforehand, let's go to the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 1. And it reads, "Be ye therefore followers of Yahweh as dear children, and walk in love, as Yahushua also have loved us, and have given himself for us in offering and a sacrifice to Yahweh for a sweet smelling savor." So that's what we aim to become by keeping these commandments and having faith in Yahushua, a sweet smelling savor, by being and making ourselves a living sacrifice on a daily basis. So let's go to the book of 1 Peter, chapter 2, verse 1. The book of 1 Peter, chapter 2, verse 1 and 21, and it reads, "For even hereunto we were ye called, because Yahushua also suffered for us, leaving us an example that ye should follow his steps." So to follow his step was to be perfect. And according to Matthew 5:48, that's how we supposed to be striving to be every day, perfect, by doing what? Keeping these commandments. So we want to keep the commandments and become a sweet smelling savior. And the only way to do that is to learn about the commandments and then apply the commandment. And this particular class is geared toward the sisters, but as a man, you should also know these things as well to be able to direct your household and to be able to teach going forward. So this is a subject that most people already know about, and is dealing with that menstrual cycle, dealing with the sisters. And we're going to start off with the book of Leviticus, chapter 15, verse 19. The book of Leviticus, chapter 15. Bear with me, let me get there. 15, verse 19. And it reads, "And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until even." So this is going into a woman having an issue in her blood, well, being on a period, as you know, or on the cycle, or the menstrual cycle. So it said when she's on that, she's supposed to be put away for 7 days. 7 days in a week. So it's a week until even. Verse 20, it says, "And everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean," meaning the bed, the couch, the chair, whatever she sit in or lay on, it becomes unclean during that time of the month. It says, "Everything also that she sitteth upon shall be unclean." Verse 21, "And whosoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean unto even." So just say husband and wife. The wife is on a cycle. She's supposed to be put off in a separate room or in a different location in the room, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't got multiple rooms, a different sleeping spot. Either she in the bed and the husband on another mattress or on the couch, or vice versa. However you work it out in your household, that's how you work it out. But it's supposed to be separate, even with the children. Same thing, separate. And if the man touch anything she's lying in during that time frame of her being unclean, he becomes unclean. But she's actually going through a cycle. She has to be unclean for 7 days. That man is unclean until to evening. I'll read that little part again. It says in verse 21, and whosoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes. We all know what that means. And bathe himself in water. We know what that means. And be unclean until even, meaning the going down of the sun. So he unclean until even. Verse 23. And if it be on her bed, or on anything whereon she sitteth, when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean unto even. So chairs, even in the same bathroom, whatever she touching, she dealing with is unclean. You know what I'm saying? So men understand these things. Sisters understand these things. When you're on your cycle, you're considered unclean at this particular time. We all know these things, but we're going over the scriptures to give our brothers and sisters a clear-cut understanding as to what's going on. Because the world will have you thinking one way when you're supposed to be doing it another way. And on these Savory Sundays, we do what? Give a clear-cut understanding to our brothers and sisters as to what the commandments actually say versus what we think in our heads or what we see on TV. Coming back into this truth, we're supposed to read, study to show ourselves approved, and then apply. We can't just go off what somebody else say. We can't just go off what we feel. We got to go by thus saith the Lord. So I'm going to keep reading. Back in Leviticus chapter 15, verse 24. And it reads, and if any man lie with her, meaning lay down, have sex with her, lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days. And all the bed whereon he lieth shall be unclean. So just like a man laying in the bed and or just like some folk was back in the day or back in the world, sleep with the woman while she on a cycle. Now you become just as unclean as she is. Now you are unclean for them 7 days, And sometimes it don't even have to be that. Just say the woman was in the bed and had an incident and somehow it got on to the husband. He's still unclean for them 7 days. Just say the husband ain't in the bed and the baby or something, or child in the bed sleeping and the blood get on the child. Guess what? That child is unclean for 7 days as well. And it said everything that's in that bed is unclean as well. And I'm going to keep reading. It says, verse 25, and if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. So just say, for instance, you go 7 days and you're still not done with your cycle. You still got to go another 7 days after that. You might be going 14 days because you was on your cycle for 8. But that's according to the scriptures. That's not my word, that's the scriptures. I'm going to keep reading though. Verse 26, it said, every bed whereon she lieth, all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. And whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean, as the uncleanliness of her separation. And whosoever touches those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until even. That's a repetitive statement. Verse 28, but if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. You see that? So she goes 7 days and she clean, and because you already know, for most men that don't know anything about the cycle, women don't necessarily stay on their cycle for 7 days. It might be 2 days. It might be 5 days. But the Lord said, I'm going to read that again, 28. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that shall be clean. So after those days, she'll be clean. Let me see where I'm at. We go to 31. Thus shall she, Leviticus chapter 15, verse 31. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness, when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of him that have an issue, and of him whose seed goeth from him and is defiled, and of her that is sick of her flowers, and of him that have an issue, of the man and of the woman, and of him that lieth with her that is unclean. So this whole chapter Leviticus 15 is talking about the unclean of a man and a woman. I encourage you, brothers and sisters, to read that and become familiar with what's prescribed in there as far as keeping that commandment. But from there, let's go to Leviticus 10 and 10, because these are the things that we should be learning about on a daily basis, keeping these commandments. Even in going into these churches, they should be telling you about how you're supposed to conduct yourself when it comes down to this. Let's go to the book of Leviticus chapter 10, verse 10. And it says, and that ye may put difference between holy and unholy, and between unclean and clean. They don't do these things in the church. They don't even speak about that in the church. That's something it's like it's forbidden to speak about for some odd reason. But we got to put a difference between the clean and unclean. That's why the Lord tells us to do what? When you own that, you got to be put outside of the congregation. You should be put apart, separated. That's a difference between the clean and the unclean. Let's go to the book of Numbers, chapter 5, verse 1. It's not going to be a long class. I'm going to get straight to the point and get it out. But let's go to the book of Numbers, chapter 5, verse 1. And it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, command the children of Israel that they put out of the camp every leper and every one that have an issue, and whosoever is defiled by the dead, both male and female shall ye put out, without the camp shall ye put them, that they defile not their camps in the midst whereof I dwell. So you see that? The Lord saying, put these individuals outside of the camp when they on their issue, when they having, whether it's being defiled of the dead, being having an issue of the blood, being on the cycle. Put them outside of the congregation. Why? Because he dwelling in the midst of us. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 23 and 14, just to furthermore prove that. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 14. And it reads, for the Lord thy God walketh in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee and turn away from thee. So the Lord is telling us to do what? Separate. Put a difference between the clean and the unclean. Why? Because he's walking in the midst of us. Let's go in the book of Joel chapter 2, verse 27 right quick. Book of Joel chapter 2 and verse 27. I'm not going to question it. When the Lord said, hey, I want you to be clean when you around me. Hey, who are we to start second guessing what the Lord said? We in the predicament we in now because we second guessing what the Lord said, thinking we know better than him. He tell us, separate the unclean from the clean. Bear with me a second. Joel chapter 2, verse 27. And it reads, and ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, that I am the Lord your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed. So we shouldn't be ashamed to follow these commandments. We shouldn't be ashamed to call ourselves Israelite. We shouldn't be ashamed, period, to be walking in this truth. We got to humble ourselves down and come back to who we are and start keeping these commandments. It's a reason behind everything. When we was in the world, we were just doing things for the hell of it. Had no understanding, just doing it. Following the ways of the world. Whatever they put on the TV, we got to do it. But the Lord give us commandments and he give us reason why we do the things that we do. So it's best that we keep these commandments. Also, at the same time, sisters, when y'all on that cycle. Let it be known in your household. Let it be known. Don't hide it. Let it be known. So that people or your household can make the necessary arrangements. So that people, when they don't see you at camp or don't see you amongst the congregation, they know exactly what's going on. It's not nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody, all the sisters go through it. It's something, it's nature, basically. But you should make your household, your Lord, make him aware so he can make the necessary arrangements. You know, don't hide that, make it known. Basically, let's go to Leviticus chapter 20, verse 18. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 18. Like I said, it ain't gonna be a long class. And you can't trust your enemy as well. You know what I'm saying? They'll tell you, hey, you good. Soon as you stop, if you been on for 2 days, on the third day you don't see nothing, you good. Go on about your business. Go back. Hey, don't trust your enemy. Trust in the Lord. According to Sirach 12 and 10. Don't trust your enemy. You know what I'm saying? You still unclean for them 7 days. Meaning, understand this as well. With them, when you own, you can't be all hugging and kissing on your brother or your husband or your children. That's part of your separation. You can't be hugging on them, kissing on them, telling them hugging on them and have a good day at school. Hey, you can't do all that. But if you build them up and give them that knowledge, they'll understand why you can't do certain things. Yeah, that's probably why most sisters get that feeling when they don't want to be touched. They don't want to be around nobody. It's probably the Lord doing that. But I'm just bringing that out. Just a thought. Let's go back to the book of Leviticus chapter 20, verse 18, and it reads, "And if any man shall lie with a woman, having her sickness, and shall uncover her nakedness, he have discovered her fountain, and she have uncovered the fountain of her blood, and both of them shall be cut off from among their people." So it's a serious thing. We got to take these things serious. And it even go down to being in camps, being in congregations, even coming down to the feast days. Because the feast days are supposed to be holy convocations, meaning separate, meaning clean. You know what I'm saying? But disobedience shall get you cut off from your people. And hey, when you unclean, hey, it's not like the Lord chopping you down or cutting you or killing you. He's just telling you, hey, you can't be amongst the people right now. Take that week off. Hey, you still can do what you do. You still can study. You still can pray. But you can't be around the congregation. You can't be at the feast days or at the camp. We read that several times beforehand. But let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 15. Book of Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 15. And it reads, then, you know what? Before we read it, I'm bringing this scripture out because a lot of brothers would say something ignorant like, hey, back in the day or in the world, hey, just put a towel down, put a towel up under you. Wicked as hell, not understanding the true severity of the situation. But they'll just say, hey, they knowing it's nasty. Sister knowing it's nasty, but they'll be in that mode. They just like, hey, put a towel down, put a sheet up under them. But our brother, when we knew who we were, we did it for a specific reason. And I'm going to read that to you. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 15. And it says, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother, is that what I want? Yeah. I started 13. It says, if any man take a wife and go in unto her and hate her and give occasional speech against her and bring up an evil name upon her and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found her not a maid. Then shall the father of the damsel and the mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity in the elders of the city in the gate. And the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter unto this man to wife, and he hateth her. And lo, he have given occasions of speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid, and yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city, and the elders of the city shall take that man and chastise him. So back in the day, to consummate a marriage, they would have, just like in the book of Tobit, went into the wedding chamber and they prayed, but then they laid down, and then she was supposed to take the tokens, meaning the sheets or the covers that they were laying on, and take those after they got done doing what they do, to prove that she was actually a virgin. So it would have the blood in the sheets, in the token. So that's what that actually went into. But in the world today, they tell you to just slip that towel or the sheets up under you so they don't make a mess, so you can ball it up and throw it somewhere else, or go throw it in the washer afterward, because they burning lustfully. But from there, let's go to 1 John chapter 5, verse 3. Because these laws that we learn about are not hard to keep, as you can see. It's just something that we've never been taught before. Some things we got to dig into and get more understanding behind. So let's go to the book of 1 John chapter 5, verse 3. Book of 1 John chapter 5, verse 3, and it reads, "For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous." So we can't make excuses. They ain't hard to keep. Like I said before, we just got to do the research. We establish judgment, Let's go to Romans 3 and 31. We don't make excuses and say, this person said that. No, what did you read? What did the Lord say? You can't make excuses and end up having somebody else at fault for our own ignorance. Let's go to the book of Romans chapter 3, verse 31. And it reads, "Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. We establish the law." This in the New Testament saying we establish the law. So the laws are not done away with. Now I know some of you might say, hey, what about going to school? What about going to work? We're not in our own land, but that don't mean that we can't strive to keep the commandments. You know what I'm saying? Esau, they even try to make a way for the sisters to deal with their cycle, try to give them vacation days or some type of menstrual leave or absence, some type of sick days, but they're not going to give you a whole 7 days every time you come on. You know what I'm saying? But we got to rehearse the righteous act. You know what I'm saying? And we definitely don't want to do it when we amongst the brethren that are trying to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, to make us unclean. We want to strive to keep the commandments. Let's go to the book of Romans chapter 6, verse 14. Because a lot of people say, well, hell, if we got to go to work, we got to go to school, we in captivity, what's the hell the point of trying? That's a mindset we do not need right now, trying to rebuild and restore our nation of people. We got to be striving on a daily basis to keep these commandments and having faith. Let's go to the book of Romans chapter 6, verse 14, and it reads, "For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace." Now, when they say not under the law, meaning the law that would put you to death for certain things, but we are under grace, meaning, the Lord realized we in captivity, and it's going to be hard for us to keep certain things. But some things, our people just say the hell with it and just go compound sin on top of sin. But I'm going to keep reading. It says, verse 15, "What then? Shall we sin? Because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid." You see that Paul answered that question right there. God forbid. We need to be rehearsing the righteous acts according to Judges 5 and 11. We got to strive to find ways to keep ourselves in righteousness. You know what I'm saying? We can't make excuses. Hey, the Lord ain't told us to go to Walmart or to go wherever the damn shop to get your food to prep for the Sabbath day. But you got to use wisdom. You got to use discernment. Understand that. So in that time of the month, brothers and sisters, what should happen? These are the things that we got to discuss and talk about. Things that we need to be understanding. So on that regards, I hope you brothers and sisters were edified and you learned something. And I'm your brother Ananias for A.O.I, the Awakening of Israel. I want to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai for the understanding, for the reading, and for you brothers and sisters tuning in tonight. And on that note, I say shalom to you.